Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're in the middle of the story of the Khalifa, the Caliph, and the Bedouin. So Mawlana so far told us that there was this Khalifa who was bountiful, and he was so bountiful that people from all over the world, Greeks, Persians, Arabs, they would all go to his court and ask for what they wanted. And no one would go back empty-handed. And during the time of this Khalifa, there was this poor Arab man, and his wife who lived in poverty and didn't have anything. And the wife, the woman, says to her husband, look at our condition. We don't have anything. At night, we think the disk of the moon, we think it's bread. We want to take that bread from the sky. This is how poor we are. And the husband tries to convince the wife that poverty is a good thing. Poverty is pride, as the Prophet ﷺ said. And he gives several arguments that contentment is a treasure. But then the wife says, no, you're not truly content. You're pretending to be a dervish, but inside you, you're contending with dogs, right? For the sake of a bone. You're not a true dervish. You're not a true contented man. And again, the husband argued that poverty is pride, wealth and gold, they're just like a cap to the head. They're there to cover your defects. If you have that treasure inside you, you don't need wealth. And ultimately, the man said, it's because of your greed inside you that you think I am greedy too, right? You don't understand why I'm content. You don't understand my contentment, because inside you there's nothing but greed. And he gave the example of when you turn around and become giddy, you think everything else is turning around, but no, it's you who are turning around, nothing else. And now Mawlana wants to talk about how people see everything from their own perspective, from their own frame of reference, explaining how everyone's movement proceeds from the place where he is. He sees everything from the circle of his own self-existence. If you wear blue glasses, you see everything as blue. You wear red glasses, you see everything as red. But true vision is when you remove those glasses, and the glass escapes from color, and that's the colorless vision. That's the true vision, when you don't have those colors to mislead you, basically. So yeah, we're going to inshallah read this section. Okay, so Brother Abdurrahman, would you mind?
Of course not. Alhamdulillah, it seems I've got it just in time.
Just in time, exactly.
Abu Jahl saw Ahmed and said, it is an ugly figure that has sprung from the sons of Hashim. Ahmed said to him, you are right, you have spoken truth, although you are impertinent. The Siddiq saw him and said, O son, you are neither of east nor of west. Shine beauteously. Ahmed said, you have spoken the truth, O dear friend, O you that have escaped from this world of nothingness. They that were present said, O king, why did you call both of them truth-tellers when they contradicted each other? He replied, I am a mirror polished by the hand. Turkoman and Indian behold in me that which exists. O wife, if you deem me very covetous, rise above this womanish care. This resembles no logic and mercy, where that blessing greed. Make trial of poverty for a day or two, that you may see in poverty double riches. Have patience with poverty and abandon this disgust, because in poverty there is the light of the Lord of glory. Do not look sour and see thousands of souls plunged through contentment in an ocean of honey. Behold hundreds of thousands of bitterly suffering souls steeped in rose syrup like the rose. Oh, alas, would that you had comprehension, so that the unfolded tale of my heart might be shown forth to you from my soul. This discourse is milk in the teat of the soul. It will not flow well without someone to suck. When the hearer has become thirsty and craving, The preacher, if he is dead, becomes eloquent. When the hearer is fresh and without fatigue, the mute and deaf will find 100 tongues to speak with. When a stranger comes in at my door, the women of the harem hide themselves in the veil. But if a harmless relative should come in, those covered ones will lift up their face veils. Everything that is made beautiful and fair and lovely is made for the eye of him that sees. How should the sound of melody and treble and bass be for the insentient ear of one who is deaf? Not in vain did God make musk fragrant. He made it for the sense. He did not make it for one whose nostrils are blocked. God has fashioned the earth and the sky. He has raised in the midst much fire and light. This earth for those of clay, heaven to be the abode of the celestials. The low man is the enemy of what is high. The purchaser of each place is manifest. O chaste woman, have you ever risen up and decked yourself for the sake of him that is blind? If I should fill the world with hidden pearls, how should I fare, since they are not your portion? O wife, take leave of quarrelling and waylaying, and if you will not, take leave of me. What room do I have for quarrelling with the good or the bad? For this heart of mine is recoiling from acts of peace. If you keep silence, and if not, I will do so at this very moment. I will leave my house and home.
Okay, so yeah, Maulana starts with the story of Abu Jahl. So Abu Jahl goes to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, what an ugly figure. Zesht naqshi kas bani Hashim shakoft. What an ugly figure that sprung from the sons of Hashim. And Sayyidina Rasulullah, he says, you're right. You have spoken truth. Right? So truth, that's you've spoken what's in your heart. Yeah, in Arabic, lying is when you say what's not in your heart, even if what you're saying is factually true. And truth is the opposite. It's saying what's in your heart. So it says, yes, that's true, but you're being rude, you're being impertinent. Then Siddiq, Abu Bakr Siddiq, comes to him and says, you're like the sun. You're like the sun. You're not from the east. You're not from the west. And how beautifully you shine. How beautifully you give light to everyone and everything. And Sayyidina Rasulullah, he says, yes, you're right. What you speak is truth. And you have escaped from this world of nothingness. You have realized. Now, the people who are present, they're amazed. These people said contrary things. One of them said, you're ugly. One of them said, you're a son. How can both of them be telling the truth? Why did you call both of them truth tellers? And the Prophet says, because I'm a mirror. I'm a mirror polished by the hand of Allah Ta'ala, right? I'm a mirror, so I reflect. You see in me what you are. You see your own reality in me. So there's Nazar, there's the one who sees, and there's also the one that's being looked at. So sometimes two people might look at the exact same thing, but they have different perspectives. So they see different things. So Abu Jahl does not see the Prophet. He thinks he sees the Prophet, but he doesn't see the reality of the Prophet. He sees his own ugliness. So yeah, Mawlana is saying, if you want to see Rasulullah, if you want to see the reality of Rasulullah, you need to purify yourself. You need to become like him. You need to follow his footsteps. You need to acquire his qualities. If you want to see Allah with the eye of your heart, if you want to see Allah, you need to realize those qualities in yourself. Otherwise, you can't see. You only see a projection of your own deficiencies, a projection of your own defects and ugliness in your soul if you don't purify yourself. Any thoughts, comments, reflections on the first section? Yes, Nahaj.
Yeah, I was interestingly today opened the Qur'an and I came across this. I just wanted to share this. So this is from Surah Nur, verse 35. The parable of his light is as if there were a niche and within it a lamp. The lamp enclosed in glass, the glass as it were a brilliant star, lit from a blessed tree, an olive, neither of east nor west, whose olive is well high, luminous, though fire scarce touch. It's
Yeah.
light upon light. It was just so
Yes.
similar to O Sun, you're neither of the East
Exactly.
nor so
Exactly.
beautiful.
Exactly. And that's the opposite of, because we look at things from limited perspectives. We might have an Eastern perspective or a Western perspective, right? As Mawlana says, blue glass, you see everything as blue. Red glass, you see everything as red. But yeah, that's when you have escaped from East and West. Then you can see that sun, which is beyond East and West, which is beyond color. So you need a vision that can see that. Yes, Madam.
Also reminds me of the verse of the couplet back towards the beginning of the Masnavi, where the Caliph says, "Let's have a look at this Layla." When she comes before him, he says, "Oh, you're nothing."
Totally.
You're nothing. And she says, "Shush, you are no Majnun."
You're not
great
Majnun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's the same
if
sort
you
of
want to
thing.
see me, you need to have the eyes of Majnun. Totally. Yeah. Totally. Allah. So yeah, the husband is saying, "Oh woman, oh wife, ای زن ار طماع میبینی مرا زین تحری زنانه برترا." If you see me as covetous, you think I'm greedy, it's because of your own greed. You're projecting that onto me, but it's your own greed. این طمع را ماند و رحمت بود. This looks like greed, but it's mercy. کو طمع آنجا که آن نعمت بود. When you see that blessing, when you see that divine blessing, there's no room for greed, for covetousness of this world anymore. So make trial of poverty. Try poverty a day or two, and then you'll see double riches here. Be patient, have patience, and abandon this disgust of poverty. Because in poverty, there's glory, there's Izzaz al-Jalal, there's the light of the glory of Allah. So the husband is always talking about how poverty and contentment is the path to go. But then he says, ای دریغا مر تو را گنجا بودی تازه جانم شرح دل پیدا شدی. I just wish you had that capacity, you just had that comprehension, so I could explain these things to you. But you don't understand, so what's the use of me telling you these things? And here, it's the husband saying to the wife, but in reality, it's Mawlana saying to us, right? Mawlana is saying, my words, they're just in Sukhan Shira ast dar pestan jan. They're just like milk in the teeth of the soul. But I need someone to suck. I need a listener who is able to absorb these and listen to these. And when I have a listener, then I will be eloquent. Then I'll have the urge to speak more. And this is actually true about Mawlana, right? They say that when Mawlana was invited to a gathering, usually he would be silent. He wouldn't speak. So they would always invite Mawlana and Husamuddin Chalabi together, because he was the listener. And when he was there, when Husamuddin Chalabi was there, Mawlana would speak. So you need a hearer that's thirsty. And thirst, again, hunger and thirst is key for Mawlana. Right? We need to become that thirsty listener to these words and to the words of Allah. We need to acquire that thirst in us and that craving in us. Because when you're thirsty, then you're more receptive. Then these words will penetrate. You will catch the essence of them, not just the surface level. Just like Mawlana was saying in the Fihi Mafi, if someone is not hungry, they look at the bread, they only see the shape of the bread, outward shape of the bread. But someone who is hungry, they don't see the bread, they don't see the outward form of the bread. They see Jan, they don't see none. They see the life inside the bread. So the key to understanding the meaning, moving beyond the surface, is hunger and thirst. Yes, Ali.
I was reminded of a nice story about Ayatollah Qazi, who was the teacher of Allama Tabatabai, and of course had many other students. I think Ayatollah Burujirdi was also one of his students. Ayatollah Behjat was also one of his students. Nonetheless, the story goes that he was also an individual like Mawlana, who was very silent, didn't usually say that much. And only when he was with his close students who had the comprehension of the topics, then he would speak. Extensively. So once upon a time, he was teaching a group of his students, his close students, and then some new students came in, and these students, I mean, they were at the level of Hujjatul Islam, so they were quite learned and understood some of the concepts very, very well. But as soon as the new students came, then Ayatollah Qazi, he suddenly stopped talking in the middle of everything. And some of the students, they were baffled. They said, Janaba Qazi, why don't you speak so that we can benefit from your knowledge and wisdom? And he said, well, you're not mature enough to understand these topics yet. And it's also said that another one of his students, he found out that there were some, his tongue, it was completely injured. And it was like somebody had taken a knife and had injured his tongue. So his student looked at his tongue and said, well, Janab Qazi, what's wrong with your tongue? It's injured. It's like somebody has pierced it or something. And he said to his student that the path to becoming the path of wisdom is not an easy one. And for me personally, when I was very young, I had problems with controlling my tongue and being silent. So I decided to put some small stones in my mouth in order to silence myself and control my tongue. And I did that for 18 years. And the scars that you see on my tongue right now are the ones that I have received from 18 years. So, yeah,
exactly. Yeah, there are, these stories that, Luqman, goes to, says to someone, go and bring the best part of the sheep. And he goes and brings the tongue. And then he says, okay, go and bring the worst part of the sheep, organ of the sheep. And he goes and brings the tongue. Because, the tongue can benefit immensely, but it can also be a cause for a lot of trouble. So, so same idea, right? So when the hearer is fresh, it encourages the speaker. Yes, Badabra.
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
When a stranger comes in at my door, the women of the harem hide themselves in the veil. But if a harmless relative should come in, those covered ones will lift up their face veils. So this is another example, it seems, of Mawlana playing with the notion of veiling. I'm put in mind of where he talks about the Qur'an is a shy bride or something like that, in which you have to court the Qur'an. This here seems like you to really hear what Mawlana is trying to say, you have to become part of the family in a way. You have to become a relative. You have to have a relationship with him.
Totally. Exactly. And it's and he says the same thing about the Quran, right? He says the Quran is a shy bride. If you want to understand the Quran, you need to build that relationship, right? And then she will disclose herself to you. But if you want to force her, no, she will run away from you, right? So same idea, right? These meanings do not open themselves to everyone. You need to become a relative. You need to be a mahram for you to be able to understand. چون که نامحرم درآید از درم پرده در پنهان شوند اهل حرم. When a stranger comes in, the women hide. A mahram comes in, then they remove their face veils. And again, in Fihi Ma Fihi, we had a similar passage where Mawlana says there was that story about the Prophet, right? When the Prophet is explaining some mysteries to some of his companions, and a group of munafiqun, hypocrites, come in. And then he says, خَمِّرُوا آنِيَتَكُمْ, cover your vessels. So in a sense, don't Don't talk about these to these people because they're outsiders. They don't deserve these. And it's same idea. They're not mahram. So yeah, he says, هر چرا خوب و خوش و زیبا کنند از برای دیده بینا کنند. Everything that's made beautiful, it's made for someone to appreciate that beauty. If you play beautiful music, there has to be someone who appreciates that music. Beautiful fragrance, there has to be someone who appreciates that fragrance. You cook a good meal, a delicious meal, there has to be someone who appreciates, who knows what good food is. مشک را بیهوده حق خوشتم نکرد. God didn't make musk fragrance for no reason. The reason is for those who can appreciate the fragrance of the musk, not for those whose nostrils are blocked and don't get anything. So why is there so much beauty in this world? For those who can appreciate the beauty and who can appreciate the inner beauty of wisdom, of meaning. So, and then Mawlana says there's something for everyone in this world, right? Allah Ta'ala has made heaven and earth. He's made heaven for those who have the aspiration to go to heaven. And he's made earth for those whose aspiration is clay. So there's something for everyone here. Allah Ta'ala has made heaven and earth, has made nar and nur, light and fire, right? So if you want fire, there is fire for you. If you want light, there's light for you. If you want earth, there's earth for you. If you want celestial beauties and celestial realities, there is that too for you. But you need to be the customer of that which is high. The low man is the enemy of what is high. In the Masnavi, there is a story about a tanner. Always his job involves dealing with dung and cow dung, right? So one day he goes to the perfume shop. And he falls unconscious. He falls unconscious because he can't appreciate the beauty of those perfumes because he's used to that smell. And then his brother comes and everyone gathers and they want to save him. And then his brother comes and brings some dung, cow dung, and he's conscious again. He's conscious again. And then the people said, "What sort of medicine was this?" and then he says, "He's my brother. I know what sort of fragrance he's used to. So that's why I brought this for him." So there is something for everyone. Right? Some people perfume, some people cow dung. Everything has a customer in this world. And this man is saying to his wife, have you ever risen up and beautified yourself for the sake of someone who's blind? No, you don't do that because the blind doesn't appreciate that. So what's the point of me explaining these things to you? Because your heart is blind. You don't see the beauty of poverty. You don't see the beauty of contentment. So there is no point me telling these things to you. I can fill the worlds with my hidden pearls of contentment, but these are not your portion. So what can I do? And he's saying, okay, you have two options. Either you stop quarreling, or take leave of me. I'm going to go. So why should I quarrel? Even peace is my heart is even escaping from peace. So I have no time for quarreling. Either you keep silence, or no, I'm going to leave my house and go somewhere else. So he's threatening her. Brother.
Well, you have to. Agreement is important. Agreement is important, and there's no point. If you're very different and you want very different things, no blame to either of you, but you should have that which you're more interested in. I mean, this earth for those of clay, heaven to be the abode of the celestials. Doesn't feel like there's much judgment in that, To you,
mhm.
your way, and to me, mine, kind of thing, really.
Yeah,
It's
exactly,
important.
exactly,
It's important. It's
exactly,
important.
exactly. And firaq, right? Separation. Again, in the fihi ma fihi, Majnun wants to go and see Layla. The camel wants to go and see its children, its own children, and it's the opposite way, right?
Yeah.
And Majnun says, okay, my beloved is Layla, and my direction is this way. Your direction is the other way. Your beloved is your children. So we can't agree, right? So there has to be separation. I go this way, you go that way.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
yeah, the husband is now saying this same thing to the wife, saying, okay, you want more wealth, I want contentment, we can't agree, so I'm going my way, you go your way. Okay, so yeah, I guess we could continue. Yeah, Brother Abdurrahman. Oh yes, Sahaj.
Just I read this story about a Sufi man
Mhm.
who was married to a lady who was
Mhm.
very difficult to kind of put up with.
Mhm.
And she used to argue a lot, and people used to
Mhm.
say to him, "Why don't you leave her? She's very difficult
Yeah,
to live with." And he said, "She's my test."
my test. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. She said, if I leave her, then I feel sorry for the other person that has to kind of deal with her. So he thought it was like it was his purpose in
Mhm.
life. Kind of be with
Yeah.
this,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they say similar thing about Socrates, right? So Socrates, they say, why don't you leave your wife, divorce your wife? And he says, that's why I became a philosopher. Because at home there's no peace, so I go out and I ask different people about their opinions of things, so I learn more. Yes, Alijan.
Yeah, I think in some sense you could say that the wife of Socrates, or the Sufi that Zahrajan mentioned, had the most positive influence on them. Otherwise,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would not have become the great scholars that they became.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, but Abdurrahman, if you don't mind.
When the wife saw that he was fierce and unmanageable, she began to weep. Tears, in sooth, are a woman's mere. She said, when did I imagine such from you? I hoped of you something different. The wife approached by the way of self-negating. I am your dust, she said, not your lady wife. Body and soul and all I am are yours. The entire authority and command belongs to you. If because of poverty my heart has lost patience, it is not for my own sake, but for yours. You have been my remedy in all afflictions. I am unwilling that you should be penniless. On my soul and conscience, this is not for my own sake. This wailing and moaning is on account of you. By God, that at every moment myself would gladly die for yourself before you. Would that your soul, to which my soul is devoted, were aware of my soul's innermost thoughts. Inasmuch as you have such opinion of me, I am grown weary both of soul and of body. I cast earth on silver and gold, since you behave thus to me, O comfort of my soul. You who dwell in my soul and heart, will you declare yourself to be quit of me for this amount? Leave, for you have the power. Oh, my soul pleads against your making this declaration. Remember the time when I was the idol and you as the idolater. Your slave has kindled her heart to comply with you. Whatever you call cooked, she says it is burnt. Whatever you may cook with me, I am your spinach. Whether sour, broth, or sweet, you are worthy. I uttered infidelity. Lo, I have returned to the true faith. I am come with all my soul to your command. I did not know your kingly nature. I rudely urged my beast before you. Since I have made a lamp of your forgiveness, I repent. I cast away opposition. I am lying before your sword and winding sheet. I am bending my neck towards you. Strike. You are talking of bitter separation. Do whatever you will, but do not this. Your conscience within you is a pleader on my behalf. It is a perpetual intercessor with you in my absence. What pleads within you for me is your nature, From reliance on it, my heart sought sin. Have mercy unbeknown to yourself, O angry one, O you whose nature is better than 100 pounds of honey. In this fashion she was speaking graciously and winningly. Meanwhile a weeping came upon her, when the tears and sobs passed beyond bounds from her who was fascinating even without tears. There appeared from that rain a lightning flash, that shot a spark of fire into the heart of the lonely man. She by whose beauteous face man was enslaved, how will it be when she begins to play the slave? She at whose haughtiness your heart is trembling, how will you fare when she falls a weeping before you? She from whose disdain your heart and soul are bleeding, how will it be when she turns to entreaty? She in whose tyranny and cruelty we are snared, what plea shall we have when she rises to plead? The love of desired things is decked out for men. God has arranged it. How can they escape from what God has arranged? Inasmuch as he created her that he might take comfort in her, how can Adam be parted from Eve? Though he be a Rustam, son of Zal, and greater than Hamza, as regards authority, he is his old woman's captive. He to whose words the world were enslaved used to cry, "Speak to me, O Humaida." The water prevailed over the fire by its dread onset. The fire makes it seethe when it is screened. When a cauldron comes between, O king, it annihilates the water and converts it into air. If outwardly you are dominating your wife like the water, inwardly you are dominated and are seeking your wife. This is the characteristic of man. To the animals love is wanting, and that arises from inferiority.
Okay, so the man threatened the wife and said, "I'm going to leave." And here the wife changes her attitude, changes her strategy, right? So she began to weep, right? So she began to weep, and then Mawlana says, "Zan daromad az tariq nisti." He approached by the way of self-negating. So tariq nisti, that's also Mawlana's way. Mawlana's way of approaching is tariq nisti. That's the way of self-negating. So when you surrender, you submit, right? So she says, "Jismu janam harche hastam ane tost." My body, my soul, all my being is yours. Hukm و فرمان جملگی فرمان توست. The entire authority and command belongs to you, right? گرز درویشی دلم از صبر جست بهر خویشم نیست آن بهر تو است. So she says, what I want is, I don't want it for myself. If I say go and seek more wealth, it's not for me, it's for you. It's for your sake, not for my sake. You've been my remedy, you've been my medicine in all my afflictions, all my pains. I don't want you to be penniless. I don't want you to be poor. So if I cry, it's not for my sake, it's for your sake. And yes, she says, I'll gladly die before you. If you want me to die, I will die, right? Do everything you want to me, but don't go away. Faragh, no. Separation, no. So yeah, he says, whatever you do, don't leave me. My soul pleads, don't do this to me. Remember the time when I was the idol and you were the idolater. Right? So she's reminding him of older times. بنده بر وفق تو دل افروخته است. I have kindled my heart to comply with you, with what you say. You say cook it, I will burn it, right? I will go beyond what you say. So whatever you call cooked, I will burn it. من سپاناخ تو با هر چم پزی با ترشبا یا که شیرین میسزی. I'm your spinach. So apparently spinach, you can cook it with sour things and also with sweet things, right? So she says, whatever it is, if it's sweet times, beautiful times, if it's bitter times, I'm with you. I'm your spinach. Good times, bad times, and rich and whether we're rich or poor, right? I'm your spinach. Kufr guftam nak be iman amadam. What I said before was infidelity, was kufr. Now I came to faith. Now I make tawbah, right? So Mawlana actually uses that. Says tawbah kardam, right? I repent. اعتراض انداختم. I cast away opposition. I'm lying the sword before you, right? So yeah, so Mawlana goes to these lengths, right? So it's clear that it's not about the husband and the wife. It's about Mawlana and Allah Ta'ala, right? So Again, Mawlana, when that separation, that word separation reminds him of his own beloved. So yeah, he's saying, as فراق تلخ میگویی سخن. You're talking of bitter separation. هر چه خواهی کن ولیکن این مکن. Do whatever you want to do. Rich and poor, illness and health, whatever. I'm happy with everything except separation, except you not being with me. هر چه خواهی کن ولیکن این مکن. Do whatever you will, but not this. So yeah, she apologizes, right? عذرخواهم در درونت خلق توست, and what plays within you is your nature. So I trust in your forgiving nature. I rely on that. ز اعتماد او دل من جرم جست. And because I relied on your forgiveness, that's why I committed these sins, because I knew you were forgiving, right? Again, it's outwardly it's the wife saying to the husband, but in reality it's Mawlana and every slave of Allah to Allah. رحم کن پنهان ز خود ای خشمگین ای که خلقت به ز صد من انگبین. So have mercy on us. Have mercy on us, because your nature is better than 100 pounds of honey, right? And then as she's talking, as she's saying these things, she cries. She cries, and weeping comes up to her, right? And weeping is when their doors are opened. When you weep, that's when the gates of mercy are opened, right? So چون از حد گذشت و های زو که بی گریه بود و خود دل ربای. She was fascinating even without tears. Even her disdain was beautiful. Now see how much more beautiful she became when she was crying. So شد از آن باران یکی برقی پدید. A lightning flash appeared from that rain of tears, and a spark of fire into the heart of the man. So the man is moved. The husband is moved. And yes, so Mawlana is explaining how آنکه از کبرش دلت لرزان بود چون شود پیش تو گریان چون بود. Her haughtiness makes your heart tremble. When she falls weeping before you, what is that? The naz, the disdain makes your heart bleed. What about when she comes in niyaz? Yes, Ali.
I think that the problem of separation is quite deep and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's the discussion of evil, right? What can you classify as evil, and how can it be understood? And according to a great number of philosophers, the greatest evil is separation from God, and that is why in dunya there's the potential of separation from God.
Yep.
So that is the greatest suffering that a human can come upon a human being.
Yep.
And that is hell in the greatest sense of existence.
Yep.
Because of course the greatest suffering that individuals can experience in hell is not the torture or the physical pain, but rather the separation from our Lord.
Yep.
And especially when that reality becomes so apparent in the next world.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why she changed her attitude, because she realized that this is what matters, right? This is what matters more to her is being with him rather than the outward, right, circumstance. And what is interesting is now he changes his approach. Now that she changed her approach, he changes his approach. And Mawlana is saying, چون پی یسخن علیهاش آفرید کی تواند آدم از حوا برید. How can Adam be parted from Eve? Even if you're Rustam is the hero, right? In the Shahnameh, he kills all the demons and all the armies. He defeats all armies. But when he goes home, he is his wife's captive, as Mawlana says, right? And Hamza, these are the great heroes. They have no one stronger than them, but they're as regards authority, has asir zalekhish. He's woman's captive. Anke alam mast guftash amadi. The one, so he's talking about Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The one who the entire world was enslaved to what he says. Everyone was waiting to hear what he says. And yet, even Rasulullah says, Kallamini ya Humayra. Speak to me, Ya Aisha, Ya Humaira. So what is this? Why is this, right? And Mawlana gives an example. آب غالب شد بر آتش از نهیب. Water dominates fire, because when you pour water on fire, the fire is put out. So water is the stronger element, right? But the same water, if it's in a pot, if it's in a deek or cauldron, the same water is dominated by fire, right? Because the fire makes the water evaporate. It annihilates the water. And yes, Mawlana says when there's that love, outwardly the man dominates the woman, but love changes the whole dynamic. Love changes the whole equation, right? So inwardly you become dominated. And this is because of love. In چنین خاصیتی در آدم است. This is the characteristic of the human beings, right? For animals, the one who is stronger is the dominant. It's the brute power that speaks, right? That's characteristics of animals. But for humans, love can change the whole dynamic, right? مهر حیوان را کم است، آن از کمی است. Animals don't have this love that changes the whole dynamic. Any reflections, thoughts on this section? Yes, Badabra.
This is another one of those parts of the Masnavi where I catch myself not kind of drifting into the story. Oh, it's a cute story about husband and wife arguing and so on and so forth. But then, as you rightly say, when you realize there's a moment, maybe it's where I uttered infidelity. Mawlana himself is talking, it seems.
Yep.
And then once you realize that, it opens out, and it's effectively Mawlana waking you up and saying, pay attention. This is what we're really talking about here.
Yeah.
And so it's very helpful. It's interesting interesting is not the right word. It's helpful to consider that the apparent here is the relationship between man and woman, but what we're actually talking about is the relationship between human being and the divine. And it's interesting to consider that, and I think I'll need to sit with that a bit more. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Yes, Sahaj.
It just also reminded me that you don't appreciate what you got until you feel like you're just about to lose it. And it was that fear of separation that kind of brought her back to the love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yes, Badabra.
Also, another example of Mawlana teaching us through opposites. We're being taught about, if outwardly you are dominating your wife like water, inwardly you are dominated and are seeking your wife. And that's a thing I see in myself and in other things, that if you are act strongly manifesting some sort of reaction, really what you're doing is you're overcompensating for the lack of that emotion inside, the lack of that feeling. So it's it's important to
sorry, I didn't catch that. Overcompensating for,
so say for example if somebody is constantly bragging about how important they are, how how much of a thinker they are, how much they know this, how much they know that, and so on and
Yeah.
so forth. Really, on the inside, that more often than not is them overcompensating for an inner feeling of inferiority,
Inferiority. Yep.
and
Yeah.
of
Totally.
weakness, and
Yeah.
not really knowing anything. So that's what
Yeah.
I mean. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's so about this verse. There's this story in Arabic literature about Harun al-Rashid, the Khalifa Harun al-Rashid. So his brother, he says to him, "You're the Khalifa. You rule over the whole lands from the Maghreb to Lahore, from Morocco to Lahore, right? So east and west. Everyone is your subject. They're all your subjects. You have the power, and yet you listen to your slave girl, and she doesn't listen to you. It's always you obeying her rather than she obeying you. How is that? How is that?" And then she has a poem in Arabic. Mali tutawi'uni al-bariyatu kullaha. What has become of me? The whole world obeys me and I obey her. And she doesn't obey me. She doesn't listen to me. وَمَا ذَاكَ إِلَّا أَنَّ سُلْطَانَ الْحَوَى وَبِهِ قَوَيْنَا أَقْوَى مِنْ سُلْطَانِ. The reason is that the king of love, the sultan of love, is stronger than I am, than my kingdom, right? So that's what Mawlana is talking about. It changes the whole dynamic. He has all the power, and yet, despite that, he listens to her. Why? Because of that love. It's just like that cauldron that comes and changes the dynamic, right? Yes, Ali.
I think there's an interesting dynamic between strength and domination and weakness and fragility in some sense. I'm thinking that, when Mawlana is writing that Sayyidina Hamza or Rastam, when they were their wives captive, that that could refer to a lot of things, right? One thing is that, as we all know, obviously, that Sayyidina Hamza, outwardly he was a very strong and independent and capable man, but that strength and let's say glory and sense of protection that he provided the people to some extent, that came from an understanding of fragility, and understanding that he was fragile and he was a captive of Allah, and that's what gave him courage. That's also true of Imam Ali, for instance, that when Imam Ali was in battle, he gained courage from knowing that everything is in the hand of Allah and that he's only a slave of Allah. He doesn't, and as long as he is enslaved by Allah, then he can't lose anything, even if he dies or whatever happens. So that's quite an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing. I don't know if I'm going completely off the rail here. I was thinking that there's also an interesting dynamic between male and female relationships, right? Because Maulana's saying is kind of that, on the one hand, that women need men, and on the other hand, that men are women's captive on a more basic level, and that kind of shows, for me at least, the dependency, the interdependency that we have between the two genders, which is quite relevant today, because we have a lot of toxic femininity, we have a lot of toxic masculinity that's all about, we don't need men, we don't need women, and we're independent, and so on and so forth. But even from a lot of the psychological studies, they show that couples who are in a good relationship, they thrive much better. They don't suffer from loneliness or from depression and other psychiatric symptoms and so on. So they have a higher well-being. And also that there are things that, let's say, psychologically and spiritually, that a woman can help a man with, that another man cannot. And there are things and aspects of the world that should be seen from another perspective. And that's that is, to some sense, something that really makes life beautiful, that we need each other. We're not Allah, only Allah can live independently. As long as we exist, we need each other, and that's a beautiful thing. That's not something that we should be ashamed of, that we depend on other people.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I mean, nowadays in society, that's something that you should not be proud of, that you depend on other people. You should be as independent and self-made as possible, which is completely contradictory, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mawlana responds to all of that in a single sentence. How can Adam be parted from Eve? Right? Adam needs Eve needs Adam, right? How can they escape from what God has arranged? So yeah, I guess we could read the next section as well, because it's related to the same topic. So yeah, Brother Abdurrahman, if you don't mind.
Bismillah. The Prophet said that women prevails exceedingly over the wise and intelligent. On the other hand, ignorant men prevail over women, for in them the fierceness of the animal is imprisoned. They lack tenderness, kindness, and affection because animality predominates over their nature. Love and tenderness are human qualities. Anger and lust are animal qualities. She is a ray of God. She is not that beloved. She is creative. You might say she is not created.
Alhamdulillah. So گفت پیغمبر که زن بر عاقلان غالب آید سخت و بر صاحب دلان. The Prophet said that woman prevails over those who are intelligent and wise. So there are different sayings of the Prophet along the same lines, right? So one is لا يكرمهن إلا كريم ولا يهينهن إلا لئيم. So no one honors women and respects women except one who is kareem, generous. And no one belittles them except one who is la'im, one who is a wretched person, right? And yeah, the Prophet said, I'm the best to my, the best of you is the one who is the best to his wife. So he's saying to those who are intelligent, woman dominates, right? But on the other hand, ignorant men, Jahilan, those who just act by fierceness, by brutality, right? The fierceness of the animal, right? They dominate women because that kindness, that tenderness is absent in them, right? So they lack tenderness, kindness, and affection. And these things, kindness and affection, they're human qualities. They're the things that distinguish humans from animals. If you look at the brute side of things, that's why the ignorant men dominate. But you look at the human qualities, that's what changes the dynamic, right? مهر و رقت وصف انسانی بود. Love and tenderness are what is human. These are human qualities. حشم و شهوت and anger and lust, these are the animal qualities. And then the last verse is پرتو حق است. She is a ray of God. So you need to see God in your wife, in woman, right? So پرتو حق است. So ultimately everything is a ray of Allah, right? So Mawlana sees Allah in everything, right? Everything's a mirror, is a ray. So she's not your beloved. She's a ray of God. خالق است و گویا مخلوق نیست. She is creative. So you might say she's not created. So see the beloved in your, right? See the heavenly beloved in her. So خالق است و گویا مخلوق نیست. She's not created. Any thoughts, reflections on any of these verses? Yes, Brother Abba.
It's helpful to see these passages that we're considering now within the context of what's come before, because that's helpful. I've read this couplet, she is a ray of God, she's not that beloved before. And reading it as merely a small section is one thing, but I find that reading it here over the, having approach to this section over many months, it's actually a lot more helpful. What comes to heart is that, first of all, the way the things are in this world, with the way that power and authority is set up, is not how it really is. So in the next world, those who are strong and have all the power and authority here may well have to taste weakness and lack of authority there, depending on how you use your whatever power or authority that you've got, because on Yawm al-Qiyamah is la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So there's that thing that comes to heart. In other words, it cautions me to be careful with the things that I feel I possess, or those qualities, or anything, to be careful how I discharge them, because you will you'll meet them again. You'll meet the consequences of your choices. So that's helpful. And then remembering that love and tenderness are human qualities, and anger and lust are animal qualities, is really important, because we're here to learn. This is the mazhabi ishq, right? So we're here to learn about love and tenderness, and to put anger and lust in their just, proper place. So that's really helpful. Partners, man and woman, and for man, are to reflect something to the other, so that we're to sort of shine rays of light to each other, and in that we learn more about Allah. So there's a lot here, and it's really very helpful to read it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Ali.
An extension of what Brother Abdul Rahman said. I think ultimately what separates love from lust is that love is all about giving, about sharing, and thinking of the beloved, and not wanting anything for yourself. And lust, on the other hand, is more wanting, satisfying your own needs, satisfying your own desires, and not thinking of your counterpart, your partner, or whoever it may be. And of course, I think another thing that is problematic nowadays is that there's no separation between the two, right? I mean, Gen Z, let's say, they don't really understand the difference between love and lust, right? They think it's just the same thing. If I feel something for this guy or for this girl, then that's love. But no, those are very different emotions. And most of the times, what is usually referred to as love at first sight, that is just lust and desire. And that's just an emotion that will pass on. It will not stay with you forever. But true love and true understanding is beautiful, and that is something that can stay with a human being forever if it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you touched on a really good point. True love is giving, whereas lust is taking, right? It's what you want for yourself. And it reminds me of the story, there's a famous story about heaven and hell. So someone goes and there are two rooms, they're identical. There's a dining table, lots of delicious food. And in one room, and long spoons, super long spoons. In one room, the hell, the room that's called hell, they're all starving because they can't eat. The spoons are super long. They can't use them to eat. So everyone's starving and everyone's miserable. And in the other room, that's the heaven, right? They have figured out that they can feed each other, right? So that's the love of giving, and they're all happy. So, if people are focused on what can I take, what can I get, what is there for me, right? So long as you're focused on that, it's like the super long spoon, and you can't feed yourself. And that's the misery. That's where the misery and unhappiness comes from. And yeah, if you're focused on what can I give, right? How can I give more and be better? Then that's the love, that's the giving, and that's where the heaven appears. Yeah. Yes, but that.
Those are very perceptive, very helpful comments. Thinking about it, love and tenderness and anger and lust. So love is ultimately, it feels what you're saying is you, whereas lust is me.
Me. Yep.
It's so love is in a human realm is like a sharing. Like the long spoons is very helpful.
Yep.
We Mawlana in some places uses the image of a rider and a horse or a donkey. The rider without a horse isn't going to go very far.
Yep.
And a horse without a rider won't go very far either, because it would find the nearest paddock and just eat or whatever. So
Yes.
the two of them are needed, but it's love and wisdom that must rule.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's only love that can give each thing its necessary hug. I feel like love is really what sits behind justice.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, Sahaj.
I'm actually thinking in moments of anger, it arises from thinking of yourself. When you become selfish, you think, what about me? It's not fair on me, and then you become angry. And then love is kind of the antidote for anger. It kind of dissolves everything and brings us all together. But just a reflection on the whole story, because I was listening to the recordings of the past few sessions. I found it quite difficult listening to it, because first it kind of stereotypes the woman as the kind of materialistic spouse, seeking,
Yes.
And then it kind of went on. Then the woman starts judging the man's religious intention. And then it was just kind of getting into ego battle, him calling her materialistic, then she's saying you're you're a fake, like, religious poor man. And then at the end they kind of realized that actually they've just kind of gone off the off the rail and forgotten about why they actually got together. I did find the story quite interesting, but then I found it quite toxic when they were arguing as well.
Mawlana is showing the toxicity of that, so deliberately to show us how toxic it is when people argue and fail to.
And then he brings separation in, and then back to God again. I just wanted to ask at the last section where it says, you might say she is not created. What does that mean?
So here is the deepest part. So Mawlana is basically talking about seeing Allah in her, right? So because she is ultimately a ray of Allah. So see the beauty, see what is divine in her, right? So that's when the argument stops, when he sees in her what is divine, what is beautiful, what is from Allah, and she sees in him what is divine, and she apologizes, and so they both see, instead of seeing themselves, they both see ultimately the heavenly beloved in each other. So that's when they make peace. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, it's about the different forces in us, different parts of us there in disagreement. We only find inner peace when those forces are in agreement, when those forces make peace, right? And they only make peace when they see Allah in each other, when they're all integrated and they're all focused on Allah. That's when a human being becomes integrated. Otherwise, this argument between the husband and the wife, it's going on inside us all the time. Inside everyone. It's these husband and wife arguing all the time. The peace is made only when people submit to Allah and people see that beauty. Yeah. Yes, Alice.
Yeah, I think that from a practical point of view, this is also a really good lesson about couples therapy, right? How couples should evolve problems and how they should deal with arguments and disagreements, because I mean that is a very natural thing and it's almost impossible to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the discussion comes from a place of finding a compromise and gaining understanding, then it can get somewhere. But if it's coming from a place of gaining dominance on the upper hand, then it's probably not going to go anywhere.
Totally.
And that, of course, also plays into the inferiority complex. If a man feels inferior and, let's say, not manly enough, if he's not always right in an argument, then that can really become something that is quite toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, but that one.
It's also, again, another instructive argument in Book 1 of the Masnavi. We've had this many times now, where people seem to fall into argument about the way to proceed, like with the lion and the animals, the vizier dividing the Christians of his time, with different teachings and so on and so forth. And again, I found myself falling into, two things. One, oh, this is a nice story, if you're not, and then the other thing is, when each side puts its particular perspective, I find myself thinking, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I agree with that person. And then when the opponents, yes, that's right. So there are a number of things there. One, we seemingly have a natural tendency to want to argue.
Yeah.
That, and where does that come from? That comes from a desire to be right, to be seen to be right. Ultimately, it's the nafs. Because animality predominates over their nature. There's that part of ignorance that we all have within us, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Mawlana takes it helps us understand that it was never really about interesting arguments between people from which we are somehow abstracted, we're somehow standing outside them. These are things that are going on inside us all of the time. And that the argument itself is almost like the way, because for example, with the vizier back earlier on in the Masnavi, you get all of these different truths thrown against one another, and you find yourself thinking, yes, it's that one. Oh no, it's that one. Oh no, it's that one. Well, what I found myself thinking is, well, I don't actually know which one is right. And then again here, who's right, who's wrong? Then what that seems to say, and you seem to hint at that when you said that the end of the argument is when Mawlana appeals directly to Allah. The end of the argument is, oh Allah, I don't know. You teach me. Show me the way, or in this case, at the hand of Pir. So it's really in these arguments are much more instructive than I ever thought that they were.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, indeed. The Sufis have an interpretation, tafsir of the verse in the Quran where it says Adam and Eve Allah Ta'ala told them, don't get close to this shajara, this tree. And they say shajara is the same root as mushajara, argumentation. So once you approach argumentation, once you approach an analytical, argumentation, you're getting far from the paradise. You're getting that's what takes you away from paradise. Because the branches of the tree, they're always contradicting each other. That's that's the nature of the tree. Unless you get to the root of the tree, then that's fine. Because in the root, there's unity. You get to the branches, they're always fighting each other. They're always contradicting each other. Yes, Badabir.
So then that's very helpful, because we seem to have a love of branches. But the Masnavi is the roots of the roots of religion.
The roots of the roots, yeah, indeed.
So yeah, that I realize how foolish I've been, and I need to go back to the very beginning and start again. Allah.
We all should. That's actually a deep saying. We all should go back to the beginning. That's the core of all spirituality. Going back to the beginning and starting again. Okay, so yeah, I guess we could stop here, and then the next section is now the man is sorry. Now the man apologizes to the woman, and then yeah, inshallah, we'll continue that next week.